Hello everybody, Emma here. I have had so many adult inquiries this year, or even adult students get started with me, and they all have the same questions, or they're all curious about the same things. And so I had the idea to create this beginner series so that some of this information could be accessible to anybody who's looking to start cello lessons or start learning the cello. So this first episode is going to answer all the initial questions like, what stuff do I need? How do I find a good cello? What gear should I acquire? And then the next lessons are going to be me teaching the first foundational skills of cello. So if you're interested in learning the cello, this beginner series could be just right for you to give you a taste of it. I am going to also be providing a PDF of everything that I talk about with links to some resources that would be useful and some sites for you to get the stuff you need. So if that would be useful to you, you can find that in this video description. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, first of all, just some basic necessities here. So eventually you're going to be needing some rosin for your cello. Rosin is a sticky substance that goes on the bow hair, and it creates friction between the bow hair and the string, which is how you get the string vibrating, which creates a sound. I'll link to some of my favorite rosins in the PDF, but the one I'm currently using is Bernardel. It looks like this. It's pretty dang affordable, very cheap. Okay, the next thing you're gonna need once you're playing the cello is a rock stop. This is a strap that goes under your chair, hooks to the chair leg, and then your cello end pin rests in here so that your cello isn't sliding around when you're trying to play it. So these ones are really cheap that connect to the chair. If you want to be bougie like me, I have specific rock stop needs. I use this one, which I think is from Johnson String, and it's for hard, slippery surfaces, but it sticks and you can place it anywhere. So it's a little more stable than these, but for getting started, this is totally good. Okay, then you're gonna want something to clean and wipe down your cello strings and wipe down under the bridge area. And that would just be a rag, microfiber, something like that, to keep your cello nice and clean. Okie doke. The next thing you're gonna want is what I call a pretend bow. Now, the bow is relatively heavy for a beginner when trying to create the cello bow hold, and that's when a lot of problems get started, is when we try to hold the bow right off the bat and a lot of bad habits are formed. So I get these big, thick dowel sticks from Michael's and I slice them. And this is my students' first bow, what they practice their bow hold on. I highly recommend finding something like this that's very light, where you can practice getting your bow hold shape really solid, and then doing some bow exercises before you ever try to use the bow. That's gonna save you from some bad habit formations. Something you could also do is like a big piece of foam. I have these foam rockets. Something, light that you can practice the bow hold on. If you want to go the extra mile, you can get what is called a twinkle bow. This is like a tiny, light version of a bow where you can practice knowing where to put everything without the weight of the full-size bow, and I'll link to this in the PDF. Okay, a couple more things gear-wise. You might want to consider some form of humidifier for your cello. I use these, which are the Boveda. They go in the case, but you can also get ones that go into your F-holes. I'll link to this in the PDF. Tape. This musician tape is really useful when you're first learning where your positions are on the fingerboard, and also bow distribution. You can put this on your bow. All right, if you have never played an instrument and you're wanting to also learn how to read music so that eventually you're not playing everything memorized and you can join a group, you might want to consider some note learning flashcards right off the bat so that while you're establishing your foundational cello technique, you can be learning your note pitches on the side. Not a bad idea at all. Okay, then just to think ahead a little bit, you might want to get your beginner books. What I recommend and teach out of is the Suzuki method, so the Suzuki Cello Book Volume 1, and then I Can Read Music Volume 1, so that you can sort of just have what you need set to go. If you're going to be buying all this other stuff, why not put it in the cart, right? So I will link to those, but they look like this. Here we go. I Can Read Music Volume 1. Do not judge the state of this Suzuki book. I've been teaching for over 10 years, and it's probably time for me to reinforce this or bind it or laminate it. But this is the Suzuki Cello Book 1, and I will link to this in the PDF as well. Also, something you may not have considered is what kind of seating you have at home. You really want to have a chair or a bench. I use a piano bench that sits you so that your knees are not higher than your waist. Okay, you're gonna want a bench or a chair that positions you so that your knees are not higher than your waist, and also so that you're not like sitting up like you're on a stool. So you want your knees to be waist height or an inch below. You're going to want a music stand, which you can buy at any music store or online. And then lastly, a full-length mirror that you can practice in front of. This is going to be huge in establishing the correct habits if you can see what your body is doing. You can get one of the cheapy ones from like Target or Walmart, like the dorm door mirrors. Or you can splurge on something nice. Treat yourself. I think that essentially covers all of the gear you're going to need. If you have questions, please drop them in the comments, and I would love to answer them for you. Let's talk cello. Everybody knows about the big mass music rental stores that you go to in 5th grade that has every single instrument you could ever need for school band or school orchestra. I would advise you to stay away from these places if you can. Try to go to a fine instrument shop that can rent an all-wood cello. This is going to be huge for your confidence as you're building the skills because they actually sound good, and the problem with the big music shops that rent every kind of instrument is they don't specialize in cello, and so sometimes your instrument can come with problems. I've had students come to me with a square bridge so that all of their strings are the same height. That's not good because how do you roll from one string to the next? I've had students come with end pins that don't slide out or go back in. I've had students come with crazy buzzes on their cello that make a buzzing sound every time they try. And then ultimately, most of my students just don't like the way these cellos sound because they're made of carbon fiber and not wood. So do a little research to find a fine instrument shop in your area. Some also, if it's a little farther, they might ship, or you might just consider a road trip. It's a little extra work, maybe a little extra money, but it goes such a long way. Most of my students who opt not to start that way and just go to the local music center, they end up switching to a fine instrument shop because they're frustrated with aspects of the cello or how the cello sounds. If you have questions about this, please drop them in the comments and I would love to respond. Okay, so we've got all of our stuff set up. Now keep an eye for the next video in this beginner series where we get started on learning the cello. See you then.